The air felt different the moment I landed back in New Jersey, heavy, thick with that strange blend of airport grime and summer humidity. After 4 years stationed at Camp Humphreys in South Korea, I should have been nervous about adjusting to civilian life again. But all I could think about was seeing my wife and kids. I'd imagined that moment 1,000 times. Pulling up to her driveway. The front door flying open. Avery shrieking "Dad" as she charged down the walkway, Logan trailing after her with that determined wobble in his step. Tara running into my arms, laughing through tears. The kind of reunion you picture when you're halfway around the world, missing birthdays, holidays, scraped knees, and bedtime stories. I came home a week early on purpose. I didn't tell anyone. I wanted it to be a surprise. A quiet, meaningful homecoming. Not the kind with banners and balloons, just the kind where you walk into your own house and feel like the missing puzzle piece is finally where it's supposed to be. But none of that happened. Instead, when I turned onto our street, the first thing I saw was a black Mustang in the driveway. Sleek. Clean. New. Not mine. Not Tara's. Not anyone I recognized. And right away, something inside me shifted. That weird internal gravity that keeps you grounded just tilted, like the world had moved slightly to the left and no one told me. I parked on the curb. Just sat there for a minute in my rental car, engine running, staring at that Mustang. The longer I looked at it, the more certain I became something was wrong. I'm not the jealous type. Not by nature. You don't survive military life, the distance, the months of silence, the calls that drop mid-sentence without learning how to trust. Tara and I had done long distance before. This wasn't our first deployment rodeo. But this wasn't a deployment issue. This was something else. Something closer to instinct than suspicion. I got out slowly, heart drumming in my ears. I left my bag in the car. Didn't want to carry the weight of it up the driveway, not yet. I needed to see more first. Our house looked the same on the outside, same worn welcome mat, same potted plants. I knew she'd K*LL within a month. But when I looked through the front window, that's when everything really cracked open. Tara was in the kitchen, barefoot, wearing a hoodie that clearly wasn't hers. It hung loose on her, sleeves half covering her hands. It was dark navy, the kind of thing a man would toss on after a workout. She had a baseball cap on, too, also not hers. She was moving around like she was comfortable. Not like someone who just heard a car pull up. Not like a wife expecting her husband home from deployment. She didn't know I was watching. She was tossing something into the trash, looking annoyed. Then she paused, someone called out from inside. I couldn't hear what was said, but a man stepped briefly into view. Tall. Broad. Clean-cut. He said something else, and Tara glanced back, gave a curt reply, and shut the door behind her. I stepped away from the window before she could spot me. My chest felt tight, like someone had wedged a brick under my ribs. I circled back to the car and opened the trunk, mostly for something to do, something that made it look like I had a reason to be here. But the truth is, I needed a moment. A breath. A plan. Or at least, a way to convince myself that maybe I had misread everything. But I hadn't. When she came outside and saw me standing there in uniform, boots still dusted from the tarmac, her reaction didn't match the one I'd imagined all those months. No tears. No sprint into my arms. Just stunned silence and then something colder. Something that looked more like panic than joy. Jason, she said, voice caught in her throat. What are you doing here? I studied her face. She wasn't wearing makeup, but her cheeks were flushed, her eyes tired. She was holding her phone like it was a shield. No kids in sight. No welcome home. No nothing. I got back early, I said. Wanted to surprise you. There was a beat of silence where neither of us moved. Then she glanced behind her toward the house. Not casually, nervously. Oh, she said. Wow. You should have told me. I wanted to see you, I said. She nodded, but her eyes flicked past me. Well, I mean, you're here now. That's good. Come in, I guess. I wasn't expecting. Whose car is that? I asked. Calm. Flat. She hesitated. Just long enough for my stomach to knot. Oh, it's my friend Eric's, she said too quickly. From the gym. He came by to help me move some stuff in the garage. In the hoodie? I said, pointing to what she was wearing. She blinked. Looked down at herself like she'd forgotten. Oh, this? No, I just grabbed it. He left it here last week. It's nothing. He's just a friend. I looked at her for a long moment. I didn't say much. Just one word. Right? And in that second, something between us died. Not loudly. Not dramatically. It just stopped breathing. I didn't press her. Didn't raise my voice. I didn't walk into the house. I didn't ask where the kids were or why she looked like she'd been caught. I just stood there and she stood there, and that silence, that aching, pulsing silence, said more than either of us ever could. She muttered something about getting the kids from her mom's. Said they'd stayed over last night. I nodded. She asked if I wanted to come in. I said I needed a minute. She went back inside. I stood on the porch alone, listened to the screen door creak shut behind her. And for the first time in years I felt like a stranger outside my own home. I didn't sleep that night. After leaving the house I drove around for hours. Through old neighborhoods, past gas stations and 24-hour diners that blurred into each other. I kept telling myself I was being paranoid. That I was exhausted. That I hadn't seen what I thought I'd seen. But the more I tried to convince myself otherwise, the louder my gut screamed the truth. She hadn't expected me. That was real. She hadn't been happy to see me. Also real. And the man in the doorway, the black Mustang, the hoodie wrapped around her like it belonged there, those weren't coincidences. They were part of something. A pattern. A bigger picture I hadn't wanted to admit existed. Eventually, I found myself outside a cheap motel on the outskirts of town. I checked in under a name I hadn't used since basic Miller J. No one asked questions. That's what I needed, silence and time. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the beige walls, trying to piece together everything I'd ignored over the last year. And there was plenty. First, the passwords. A few months into my final deployment stretch, Tara had changed the login to our shared cloud storage. Said it was a glitch, that the app must have logged her out automatically and she just reset everything. I believed her. Why wouldn't I? Then came the cameras. We had security cameras around the house, the doorbell, the backyard, and one in the garage. Not because we didn't trust the neighborhood, but because I liked being able to see the kids while I was gone. I used to check in during my lunch breaks, watch Avery chase Logan around the yard, or Tara pulling weeds with a look of half concentration and half frustration. But about 7 months ago, she disabled them. One by one. Battery issues, she claimed. They keep going offline. Again, I believed her. Long-distance trust isn't a luxury, it's a requirement. You can't call your wife a liar from 6,000 miles away. Then the calls got shorter. Late-night chats used to be the highlight of my day. Tara would curl up in bed, camera propped on a pillow, and we'd talk about everything and nothing. But that started to shift around month 10. The calls became rushed. She always had something going on, a migraine, bad Wi-Fi, her battery dying. The kids stopped appearing in the background. I'd ask about them and she'd say they were sleeping or over at her sister's. There was this one time, I remember it clearly, when we were FaceTiming and I heard a man's laugh in the background. Loud, confident, too close. Tara's face twitched and then the screen went black. Sorry, she texted after. Dropped the phone? Everything's fine. But it wasn't. I knew that now. I just hadn't let myself know it then. That night, I sat on the motel floor with a legal pad and started writing it all out like I was building a case. Because in a way I was. Changed passwords. Disabled cameras. Shorter calls. Kids MIA. Male laugh. Mustang. Hoodie. Baseball cap. No joy when I returned. Each line I wrote down felt like a punch. Not because they surprised me, but because I'd known all along. Somewhere in the quiet corners of my mind, I'd seen the truth months ago. I just didn't want to believe that the person I trusted most had slowly been pulling away, brick by brick, wall by wall, until I was shut out completely. At some point, I drifted off with my boots still on. When I woke up, the sun was already pouring through the dusty blinds. I took a shower, dressed in jeans and a clean t-shirt from my duffel, and went to get coffee from the diner next door. I didn't have much of a plan, just a need to see it for myself. To confirm. I parked a few houses down from ours. From there, I could see everything, the driveway, the porch, the mailbox I built the summer before I deployed. The Mustang was there again. Same spot. Different day. Like clockwork. I waited. About 15 minutes later, Tara stepped outside. She was barefoot again, wearing leggings and that same damn hoodie. She walked around the passenger side of the car and leaned into the driver's window. Her body language shifted, soft, familiar, almost affectionate. I couldn't hear what she said, but I didn't need to. I'd seen that version of her before. Back when it was me she leaned into, not a stranger. Then I saw him. He reached up, brushed something from her hair. Bold, casual, like he belonged there. She didn't flinch. I snapped a picture, then another. I stayed long enough to see her wave as he pulled out. Her smile disappeared the second the car was gone. She glanced up and down the street, adjusted her hoodie, and went back inside. I waited until I was sure she wouldn't come out again. Then I followed the Mustang. He drove with the kind of confidence that only comes from being unchallenged. He wasn't worried about being seen, wasn't checking mirrors like he was hiding anything. He thought he was safe. He parked at a small apartment complex near the gym where Tara worked. Walked inside without looking back. I checked the license plate. I cross-referenced it with the gym's website, the staff section. His name was Eric Donovan. Personal trainer. Certified. Smiling in his profile photo like a guy who thinks nothing can touch him. I went back to the motel and did what I've always done when the truth hits too hard. I started building a strategy. I pulled up Tara's old texts, went through our shared photo albums, scoured emails for anything I might have missed, and I found it all. The red flags, the growing distance, the story she hadn't told me but was written between every line of our conversations. They say hindsight's 20/20, but this felt more like being dragged underwater. Struggling to breathe while you realize you've been drowning long before you knew the ocean existed. By the time I finished organizing the files, **TS, photos, timelines, it was almost dark. I sat at the motel desk, staring at the final image. Tara, leaning into that car window, smiling like I hadn't seen her smile for me in years. That was the moment I stopped being surprised. I wasn't mad yet, that would come later. Right now I was just still. Not broken, not hysterical, just awake for the first time in a long time. She hadn't just found someone else. She'd replaced me. Slowly, carefully, like I was furniture she planned to sell before I even noticed it was gone. The next morning I got up before sunrise. There was no point in staying at the motel. I hadn't really slept. Just laid there staring at the ceiling, waiting for the sun to show up and give me permission to move again. Once it did, I packed up, checked out, and drove back to the neighborhood, parking in the same spot down the block. It was just past 6:30 a.m., early enough that most people were still inside, lights just flickering on behind curtains. Familiar suburban silence. Except nothing felt familiar anymore. I sipped bad coffee from a gas station cup and watched our house like I didn't belong there, because honestly I wasn't sure I did. I had orders, a DD-214, a marriage license, and birth certificates that said I did. But what I saw didn't feel like my life anymore. Felt borrowed. Or worse, stolen. At 7:02, the Mustang rolled into view. Same car. Same man. Different routine. This time, he didn't park in the driveway. He pulled up to the curb in front of the house. Maybe she'd asked him to be more careful. Or maybe he was just feeling cautious today. But when she came out the front door, I could tell it didn't matter. She was ready, hair pulled back, wearing makeup, not overdone, just enough to look like she was just running errands. She had on leggings and a fitted tank top with the gym's logo on it. Casual, clean, calculated. She walked to the passenger side of the Mustang, opened the door, tossed in her gym bag, but didn't get in right away. Instead, she leaned into the driver's window, both arms resting on the doorframe, like they'd done this 100 times. Then she kissed him, quick, but not uncertain. Her hand stayed on his arm even after the kiss ended. Then she pulled back, gave him a look, one I hadn't seen in years, and stepped away. I lifted my phone and snapped a picture. Click. She went back inside without ever looking around. She didn't suspect a thing. I followed the Mustang again just like yesterday, only this time I had a goal. I wasn't just chasing ghosts anymore. I wanted confirmation. Not for court, not yet, but for myself. I needed to know if this was a fling or something deeper. Something worse. Eric pulled into the same apartment complex. I waited for him to disappear inside, then got out of my car and walked the perimeter. I didn't go in, not yet, but I memorized the layout, checked the mailbox names, noted the unit numbers. I saw Tara's name listed alongside his on one of the tenant directories. I blinked. Read it again. Unit 2B, Donovan/Miller. She'd used her maiden name. A quiet deception. That hit harder than the kiss. Back in the car, I looked up the property's leasing office. They weren't open yet, but their website listed public records, lease applications, dates, payment histories. It took less than 5 minutes to find what I needed. The lease had been active for 3 months, paid using direct withdrawals from a joint account. My account. I didn't say anything. Just sat there, phone in hand, watching my reflection in the window while the pieces locked into place. It wasn't just cheating. It wasn't just emotional neglect. She had been replacing me in phases, and I hadn't even realized I was being erased. At the motel later that afternoon, I checked back in. I started digging deeper. I pulled up our financial statements, bank accounts, credit reports. Years of routine, trust, automation. I had set up everything for her before deployment. Access to my military pay, the savings account, the joint card. All of it was in her hands because I believed she would take care of our family while I served. And she had, just not the way I'd imagined. There it was, a second credit card account I never applied for. Opened under my name but registered to a P.O. box I didn't recognize. Charges spanning nearly a year, hotel stays, restaurants, spa visits, tickets to shows, travel expenses. Virginia Beach stood out. A resort booking for 4 nights listed under 2 adults and 2 children. I scrolled through the dates. It was the same week Tara had told me her sister had invited the kids for a beach week. Said she needed time to clear her head. Told me she'd be visiting family, taking pictures with her mom. She hadn't gone with her mom. She'd gone with him. With Uncle Rick. That's what the receipt said. I found a purchase from a theme park gift shop. The email confirmation listed a custom hoodie printed with the name Uncle Rick No. 1. Same email domain Tara used for family reservations. I felt the blood drain from my face. She had introduced him to our kids under a fake name. This wasn't an affair. It was a rehearsal. They weren't sneaking around in the shadows. They were playing house. Building a version of our life without me in it. I had gone from husband and father to invisible ghost, just a funding source on paper. I kept scrolling. I didn't know what I hoped to find. Or maybe I did. Maybe I wanted her to have stopped short of involving the kids, but it was already too late for that. I found school emails forwarded to her private account. One of them had pictures from a family volunteer day. There was a photo attachment. Blurry. Candid. But clear enough. Eric was standing behind Avery and Logan at a school table helping them glue construction paper to a banner. Tara was behind the camera. I opened social media, checked Tara's profile. Nothing out of the ordinary, nothing public. But Eric's? He had a lockdown Instagram, but his Facebook? Sloppy. Too many public tags. I found one post from a mutual friend, someone from the gym, that included a birthday party photo. The caption read, "Eric and his crew at the party today, the kids love you, man." 2 kids. My kids. Standing next to him. Smiling. I printed it. All of it. Compiled the timeline, organized folders, highlighted dates. By the time I was done, the motel table looked like a war map. Circles. Notes. Connections. Evidence. Proof. I sat back in the chair, my eyes burning. I wasn't angry yet. Still. Because beneath the betrayal, beneath the disbelief, there was this awful quiet inside me, the kind that comes when you realize you're not just being cheated on. You're being replaced. And not just temporarily. Permanently. You don't want to believe your life has been edited out of your own family. Not consciously. Not in the middle of a deployment, not when you're clinging to photos and bedtime videos sent at odd hours just to feel like you're part of something back home. But denial has a shelf life. And mine had expired. Once I saw the school photos, the party pictures, the matching shirts, once I saw my kids standing beside a man they called Uncle Rick, something inside me flipped. Not snapped. Snapping implies violence. This was quieter. Colder. Like a switch had been turned off and replaced with something surgical. I stopped feeling. I started investigating. By then I was living out of that same motel room, spending most of my time hunched over the tiny desk, laptop open, files spread out like I was working a case instead of mourning a marriage. Because that's what it had become, a case file. A timeline of detachment, manipulation, and fraud. And I wasn't going to sit back and let it keep happening. I started with our financials. I pulled the past 2 years' worth of bank statements from our joint checking and savings accounts. Normally, I wouldn't have paid much attention to the details, bills, groceries, kids' stuff, random charges. It always blurred together. But this time, I printed every page and read it line by line. What I found was worse than infidelity. It was theft. Tara had opened a secondary account using my military credentials. She used my social security number. She'd filled out an online application for a new credit card using our home address, and somehow it got approved. She had routed the statements to a separate P.O. box and paid it off regularly using small, staggered transfers from our main savings account. Nothing that would raise red flags. Nothing that would have stood out if you weren't looking. But I was looking now. The purchases weren't subtle anymore, either. A stay at an upscale hotel in Manhattan. 2 plane tickets to Virginia Beach, dinners at expensive restaurants, charges listed as business meals or health retreats, spa visits, once even a jewelry store. Not the kind we'd ever go to together. Something trendier, flashier. Not my style. His maybe? I created a spreadsheet, broke it into 4 columns: date, merchant, description, category. I color-coded the entries. The blue rows were purchases I recognized. The red ones? Not mine. Not even close. By the time I was done, over $18,000 had been siphoned off, all tied to charges that had nothing to do with me or the kids. Some of the worst ones were subtle. Like the time she bought a set of matching beach towels from a custom embroidery shop. They were monogrammed with R, T, A, and L, first initials of our kids, and Eric. Not me. That was the moment I stopped using words like affair or cheating. This wasn't that. This wasn't a fling. This was replacement. And she was funding it with my deployment checks. I needed to know how far this had gone, so I started checking email trails. Years ago, we'd set up a family account that we both used for kids' stuff, school notices, pediatrician appointments, travel plans. I hadn't looked at it in a while, but she hadn't locked me out of that one. Maybe she forgot it was still synced to my phone. Her inbox was a minefield. There were hotel confirmations sent during weekends she claimed to be visiting her sister. Rental car receipts. Theme park tickets. I even found a rental agreement for a beach house dated just 2 months prior under the same 2-adult, 2-child reservation type. Again, my name wasn't anywhere. But his was. Eric Donovan. Signed under primary guest. I kept digging. And what I found next nearly knocked the wind out of me. An apartment lease agreement. She had used our joint account to pay 6 months' worth of rent in advance on a place I didn't know existed, a second home, apparently 10 minutes from her gym. Listed under her maiden name again. Co-signed with Eric Donovan. The unit matched the one I'd seen earlier, 2B. The lease document even had a small note: moving in furniture this weekend, confirm parking assignment for both vehicles. That date aligned perfectly with the same weekend she told me her mom was sick and she was staying overnight to help around the house. No mention of her mom in the lease. Just parking for 2. I backed away from the screen and stared at the wall for a while, listening to the hum of the motel fridge. I thought about all the times she said she was too busy to talk. All the nights I'd left messages for the kids that went unanswered. All the times she'd sounded distracted, like she was waiting for me to hang up first. She wasn't waiting for me to hang up. She was waiting for him to come home. I opened Facebook again. Not hers, she was smart enough to keep her page clean, but Eric's gym's page. They had photo albums from member events and community days. One album, dated from just a few weeks ago, had an image of Tara and Eric standing together at a picnic. Her hand was on his chest. Avery was in the background, holding a balloon sword. They weren't hiding. They weren't being careful anymore. Because in their minds, I wasn't coming back. Or if I did, I'd be too late to matter. I copied everything. ******************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************̈̈̈ Organized and labeled them in a binder I picked up from a dollar store. I even burned a copy to a flash drive. Then I made one final call. To her mother. We'd always gotten along. Not best friends, but she'd respected me. Seen how much I cared about her daughter and the kids. When she picked up, I didn't waste time. "Hi, it's Jason. I need you to see something. And it's not a misunderstanding." I didn't speak with anger. Just clarity. And maybe that's why she agreed to meet. The next afternoon, I sat across from her at a diner halfway between her house and the motel. I didn't dramatize anything. I just slid the binder across the table. Asked her to open it. She did. And within 5 minutes, her face changed. Mouth tightening. Eyes narrowing. One hand clutched the edge of the booth as she flipped from the receipts to the photos and then to the lease agreement. She didn't say much except she told me you were on some kind of extended mission. That you stopped calling. That the kids barely remembered you. I swallowed that hard. I never stopped calling. I never missed a single birthday. She nodded. Slowly. Shamefully. "I'll talk to her," she said quietly. "You deserve better than this." "I'm not asking for anything," I replied. "Not yet. But I thought you should know." I left the binder with her. The flash drive too. Let the truth do what it needed to do. And then I left. Didn't wait for a reaction. Didn't go back to the motel either. Instead, I drove to a small hill outside town where I used to take the kids sledding in the winter. I parked there, rolled down the windows, and listened to nothing. Just the wind. And the quiet beginning of a plan. It's strange how quiet everything becomes once you stop pretending. That was the feeling I carried as I left the hilltop and drove back into town. Not rage. Not heartbreak. Just focus. Cold, razor-edge clarity. I'd seen the scope of the damage. Now it was time to do something about it. The first call I made was to the bank. Not customer service, I went directly to the fraud department. I gave them my full name, social, military ID number, and asked to speak with a supervisor. The man on the line was polite, professional, the kind of voice you're not sure is impressed or concerned. I need to report identity theft, I told him. The suspect is my legal spouse. The evidence is ready for submission. The account in question was opened without my consent. There was a pause. Then a calm, rehearsed tone. We can begin an investigation immediately, Mr. Miller. Can you verify? I have documentation, I said. Lease agreements, credit statements, travel receipts. All tied to that card. I can upload or deliver in person. Your call. He chose in person. I spent that afternoon printing copies of everything. Highlighted key dates, circled charges, wrote a 2-page summary that included deployment dates and Tara's access to my financial tools. I brought it all to a local branch, met with someone behind a locked door, and handed over the evidence like a soldier delivering a mission report. That part was easy. The next part was harder. Veteran benefits are like a spiderweb, everything connects to everything else. If someone gets access to one thread, they can pull the rest apart before you notice. So I made sure to sever all the ropes Tara had been hanging from. I visited the VA benefits office and filed an alert on my account. I requested in-person verification for any future changes, no email, no calls, no online updates. If someone wanted access, they'd need to show up with ID, paperwork, and a fingerprint scan. I locked down the TRICARE account, redirected correspondence to a secondary email, and changed every security question. I even called the base legal office and spoke to someone I'd served with years ago, Captain Reyes. She remembered me. That helped. I'm not filing yet, I told her. Not divorce. Not custody. Not officially. I just want to make sure I'm protected if she tries to escalate. Her voice dropped into that quiet, no BS register. Do you have evidence? Plenty. Then you're already ahead of the curve. Get your paperwork lined up. And stay quiet. The more she talks, the more she'll unravel. That was the plan, silence. Not revenge. Not confrontation. Just pressure. I didn't call Tara. Didn't text. Didn't respond to the half-dozen voicemails that started rolling in after her mother saw the binder. I let the silence sit. Let it thicken. Let it speak louder than anything I could have said. By day 3, her messages had changed tone. Less irritation, more confusion. She started with, Jason, call me. I don't know what you think you saw, then switched to, can we talk, please, and eventually hit, I'm sorry, okay? Just, please answer. We need to talk about the kids. That last one almost worked. But I wasn't ready. Instead, I used the time to focus on what mattered most, the kids. Avery and Logan had been pulled into this mess without their consent, and they didn't deserve to be left in the dark while their parents played chess around them. So I called the school. Told them I was back in the country. Asked for a brief meeting with the principal and the school counselor. No details yet, just a heads up that there may be changes to custody soon, and I wanted to ensure the kids had some continuity, especially if they were suddenly yanked between households. They agreed. Scheduled me in. I also spoke with a family lawyer recommended by a fellow veteran, someone who'd been through worse and came out with both custody and peace of mind. The guy's name was Kaplan. Ex-military himself. Soft-spoken but sharp. He reviewed everything, the financial evidence, the lease, the pictures, even Tara's messages. When he finished, he leaned back and said, she won't see this coming. I don't want to burn her down, I told him. I just want the kids safe. I want the lies to stop. You're in a strong position, Kaplan said. Custody might be uphill at first, but not impossible. Financially? We've got enough to trigger a fraud investigation. Maybe even criminal charges. We'll hold that as leverage. I nodded. I'm not looking to ruin her, I said. I just want to reclaim what's mine. Kaplan leaned forward. You already have. Now it's about making sure she knows it. Later that night, I sent one email. Not to Tara. To her sister. The subject line was, not a fight. Just the truth. The message was short. 2 paragraphs. I explained that I had documentation. That I wasn't looking for conflict. That I wanted the kids to be shielded from as much of this as possible. I didn't ask her to pick sides. Just asked her to understand that silence doesn't protect children, it confuses them. She didn't respond right away. But 2 days later, a text came through. I saw the file. You're not crazy. I'm sorry. The kids miss you more than you know. That broke me a little. I'd gone numb through most of this, but that one line, the kids miss you more than you know, hit like a crack in concrete. Not loud, but enough to remind you something's been shifting underneath for a while. I went back to the hill that night, parked at the top, looked down at the sleepy town lights. I pictured Avery holding my hand while crossing the street, the way Logan used to ride on my shoulders because his legs were too short to keep up. I remembered the smell of breakfast on weekends, the way they'd sneak into our room too early on Saturdays, whispering loudly like that made it less of an intrusion. I hadn't lost them. Not yet. But I had been losing time. Moments. Memories I should have been a part of. And that wasn't just on Tara. That was on me too. I'd trusted blindly. I'd assumed that love could carry the weight of distance on its own. That a good heart and an honest effort would be enough to keep a family strong while one of us served oceans away. But trust isn't a 1A street. It requires maintenance, presence, attention. And while I'd been gone, she'd stopped giving it. Worse, she'd redirected it to someone else. So now I was reclaiming it. Not with noise. Not with threats. But with precision. The silence was my we asterisk p asterisk and now. And the truth, that cold, surgical truth, was finally doing the damage I never could. I showed up at the school unannounced. The front desk staff recognized me from old pictures Tara must have given them. I explained who I was. There was a pause, then a nod, and they called the principal. Within 10 minutes, Avery and Logan were led into the office. Logan ran first, arms out, yelling "Dad," like he'd been holding it in for months. Avery hung back, blinking fast. But when I knelt and opened my arms, she broke. The hug crushed years of distance in seconds. We spent an hour at the park, just us. No questions. No explanations. Just laughter and wind. For a moment, I wasn't the abandoned husband or the betrayed father. I was just Dad. And that was enough. Tara came to court composed until she saw the files. My attorney laid everything out: financial fraud, altered records, cohabitation, lies. Her voice cracked. Her lawyer tried to spin a narrative, but truth doesn't bend easily. The judge reviewed the documents, the photos, the school records showing Eric listed as guardian. It was over before it started. I was awarded full temporary custody. Tara's visitation suspended pending evaluation. She cried leaving the courtroom. I didn't smile. I just walked out holding my kids' hands, finally whole again.